You know the series. You may love the series. You may not love the series. But you definitely recognize it. It's Street Fighter 4.
Never touched it.
Debuted. Never touched it.
I don't even think I ever touched a Street Fighter like in general. Maybe 2 on like an old emulator, but that was it. I never touched Street Fighter.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who aren't familiar, Street Fighter, developed by Capcom, is probably one of the earliest fighting games ever made. Like the original Street Fighter. James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, has talked about the original Street Fighter. And then Street Fighter, 89? Or Street Fighter...
20 I forgot what it's called.
It's 2010. Street Fighter 2010.
Yeah.
But Capcom released Street Fighter 2 on the the Super Nintendo. I don't know which year, but it was such a hit in arcades that when they ported it to the Super Nintendo, they released probably like 108 versions of Street Fighter 2. Each version, because you couldn't add DLC to a game back then, you just had to release another game. So they kept releasing Street Fighter 2 with new characters, new stages, new game mechanics, or at least like new modes that you can play. And then you had Street Fighter 3, which also had a million versions. You had Street Fighter versus X-Men. You had Marvel versus Capcom. You had Marvel Superheroes. So all of these games were like 2D platform fighters. And not platform fighters, but 2D fighters. And then in 2009, so when we were in 7th grade, Capcom released onto the 360 and the PS3 Street Fighter 4. And this was the first 3D Street Fighter game that actually looked good and still holds up. And I remember watching the trailer. I think it was during an E3, and it was a fight between Ryu and Ken, and it was highlighted, the movements were highlighted with like brush strokes. So the whole trailer was, for most of it, it was like black and white, and you just heard like punching sounds and like action sounds impact, and you saw like brush strokes like fly across the screen, and then it ends with like them in full color like throwing punches at one another. And it was awesome. And it was like, this is Street Fighter for the new generation. And then the games came out. And I remember seeing the cover at Game Crazy, which was kind of like Blockbuster, but for video games. Blockbuster did video games too, but this one was nestled ever so nicely into Hollywood Videos. And I would go to that Hollywood Video like 5 minutes away from my parents' place all the time. All the time, maybe once a week. And I kept seeing Street Fighter 4, and it was a very memorable cover. It was like Ryu set on like a black or like a white background, and it was very simple. And I didn't think anything of it until one day Hollywood Video closed because Netflix was still new at the time, and they were outselling Hollywood Video and Blockbuster, and so all of these video rental buildings and services they went under. So Hollywood Video, I don't know if you remember this, but Hollywood Video had a sale, and it was like a final sale on all of their games and movies. So they were like, "Hey man, you can buy these games. You can buy 3 for like $5 or something like that, or like 3 for $20. You know, we're selling them for whatever prices we want to sell them for, because they're rented games. You know, so it's like you can't sell them new. You know, people have been using those discs, you know, over and over and like possibly scratching them. So I think I got Street Fighter 4 after months of like deliberating and, you know, realizing like, do I want this? I think I got it for like $3. And I went home and I played it, and it was probably the first like legit fighting game that I ever played. And I fell in love immediately. Like the character designs, the movements, the fact that I could talk to like older members of my family about Street Fighter, because, you know, my mom knows what Street Fighter is. Like she played it. She had a Super Nintendo. And it all just came together in a really cool way. And ever since then, you know, I've tried to play other fighting games. Actually, saying it that it was the first was a lie. I played a lot of Tekken Tag Tournament on my PS2. But yeah, Street Fighter 4 was like the first game where I felt Like, I wasn't button mashing. Like, I was purposefully, like, looking up how to do special moves and, like, figuring out combos and playing with every character and doing the story mode over and over and over and over again to get different endings. They also, like, hand drew all of the cutscenes. So all of the cutscenes in the game, or most of them, are, like, produced by an anime studio. And that appealed to me even before I started watching anime. Yeah, dude, I was a Cammy main back then, for no particular reason. David, she wears like a swimsuit basically. That's like and so you can see her legs and her butt, and like a lot of her moves have to do with her legs. Uh-huh. She has a move called Spiral Arrow, which she goes into like a baseball slide, but she like spins, and her pigtails like spin with it, and she's blonde. And you could do like each character had like not different costumes, but they had different colors. So she had like camo painted on her legs, and her suit was green. And then you can add different colors, so you can get like the white paint and the white bodysuit.
Nice. Very nice.
And they changed her design for Street Fighter 6, which I am so hyped for. Yeah, dude. Fun fact, Caitlin Glass, who voices her in the English dub, also voices Mina Ashido in the dub of My Hero. So, fun little fact for all y'all that keep up with the My Hero dub.
Damn. We gotta talk about that. Shit.
Yeah, dude. But, yeah, I realized, like, when putting this list together of my favorite games, which I'm looking at now, I think as far as developers go, like, other than Nintendo, which, obviously, objectively, it kind of has to sit at the top of my list as far as, like, publishers and developers go, because, they've been doing this for, I don't even know how long now.
40 years?
Like, yeah, 40, 50, something like that. But I think my next favorite developer is probably Capcom. I don't know, man. Between Resident Evil and Mega Man and Street Fighter, I love so many of their games and so many of their franchises and characters, and I think Street Fighter 4 kind of solidified that for me, because now it was because of that game that I ended up playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I ended up getting a huge interest in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which at the time, even now, is like so hard to find. Like, it's such a rare game, and it has such a cult following. It was played at EVO, like the fighting game tournament, for like so many years. Yeah, I have a love for this franchise and for these characters, and for Hadouken and Shoryuken. It's just fun.
I'd like some pound cake.
I like some pound cake. Yeah. I think he actually says Tatsumaki Sempukyo. I don't know. After 2 days of Duolingo in Japanese, I thought I would be better than this. But anyway, yeah, I'm not going to tell you to go out and play a Street Fighter game, because chances are you probably already have at like a Chuck E. Cheese or something, or in passing, or you at least know who Ryu is. You know what a Hadouken is. As far as fighting game franchises go, it's definitely one of the most iconic. And for me, Street Fighter 4 is the most iconic entry in the franchise. I know for a lot of people it's Street Fighter 2, but come on, man. Like, How can I say any other when I've sunk like probably over 100 hours into that game?
The only fourth entry in a fighting game series I've played is Soul Calibur, and even that was like when I first got my Xbox 360.